This is Marc Sims, just asking a few questions. Just a few questions. I have Fred Klonsky on the line, a former teacher in Park Ridge, Illinois. So you taught in the same town, Mr. Klonsky, that where Hillary Clinton's from.
Yeah, but a few years later than her. I didn't teach her.
Yeah, but what I'm
I
saying,
taught
she left town. By the time you got there in the '70s, she left
Oh yeah,
town, right?
yeah, no, yeah. She was off. She went to Washington.
And you said you
Left,
don't have to tell this
but
story online, but you met her and you loved Hillary Clinton, right?
yeah. She came back on her 50th birthday, and I came back to her school, and it was a school that I was then teaching at. Yeah.
So wait, you
We
taught
shook
this you
hands.
taught the same
We
you
shook.
taught the same school that Hillary Clinton attended as a child.
That's right. Yeah,
Wow, it was a
yeah.
small
And then she
world.
went off to Maine. She went off to Maine South. Well, Maine East and then Maine South. People know that. We're know those schools. Good schools
Wow.
because they're nicely supported. In this state, we don't treat all schools equally, right? So if where Hillary Clinton went to high school and to elementary school, they had all the money in the world, unlike the Chicago public school system. So unfortunately, we live in a state where your zip code determines the money and the quality of the kind of schools you go to.
Yeah, if you're fortunate to
But
have
that's for another show we're
yeah,
talking about.
if
You
you're
guys will
fortunate
have
to
to have
have
me back
wonderful
on.
parents like the Robinson family,
Yeah.
then Michelle and the brother. I think Michelle went to I don't know, her brother went to Whitney Young, but
Michelle went to Whitney Young,
yeah, she
same
went to
school
one.
my kids went to. Yeah,
See,
yeah.
and the rest is history. Uh, we have an election coming up, and we have some primaries and a caucus and whatnot. So, Mr. Klonsky, who's going to win these new primaries? The first three primaries of the Democratic Party.
Well, if I knew who, like I say, if I could predict who wins these elections, I'd go to Vegas and come back a rich man. I think the interesting question though is that why is it that I have a story to tell you. I ran into Tom Perez, who was the head of the Democratic National Committee. I won't tell you the circumstances that we met, but we met, and I asked him. I said, "Why? It seems to me that those people, like from the Democratic National Committee and what we call the centrists within the Democratic Party, they almost are more. They fear Bernie Sanders and AOC and who they call the squad, the kind of the progressives and left wing of the Democratic Party. They seem to fear them more than they fear the reelection of Donald Trump. So that's the interesting thing to me is the debate within the Democratic Party and the fight for what I call the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. Because really, the Democratic Party isn't one party; it's a bunch of different parties. And so, who's going to win? I think that's yet to be seen. But I love the debate. I love that we're arguing over health care for poor people, and that we're arguing over student debt, and we're arguing over the right to access to women's reproductive rights, and that these are all discussions and arguments that we're having within the Democratic Party, because that'll just make I think the Democrats stronger and in a better position to beat Trump and the Republicans come November. So I'm not a horse race guy, and I'm not betting on who can win in the sense that I know who's going to win. But I am happy to have this debate because I think that's the important stuff about these elections.
But how does the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party get people who don't normally vote to vote?
Well, that's how. I think if you talk issues, if you talk about the real things that affect lives and show that you can deliver on them and they're not just empty promises. We have experience in Illinois with a legislature and even in City Hall, right, where they make all these progressive promises, but they don't deliver on them. So, the Democrats, I think, if they're going to be treated, especially the progressive Democrats, if they're going to be treated seriously, then they have to deliver on those promises. And the way that, of course, happens is that people have to stop being spectators. And politics, we say, is not a spectator sport. You have to get involved and active and contact. I mean, I'm on the phone. If I even have probably the most progressive legislator in Springfield, Will Guzzardi, but a day doesn't go by and he knows that I'm not on an email sending him some note saying, why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? And so even among the progressives, you got to, we have a bunch of people call themselves socialists in the city council these days, but even that, man, you got to be on them all the time, because one thing I know is that once people get elected, they're the best thing in the world when they're running for office, but nobody gets better after they're elected. And so, if they're not good when they're running, they're not going to get better when they get into office. So you got to be on them all the time.
But how does these more progressive Democratic candidates? I'm not saying we need Medicare for all right away, but we sure need to be marching toward that. You got to fix COBRA, these out of what you call network cost, prescription drugs. There's a lot of things they need to be. They can get passed.
But Mark, why not? I don't understand. Why not now?
Because when you tell people, I want to have somebody on the show on this podcast explain to me. And I'm not saying I'm against it or for it. But the point is that if you're going to take away my Humana care or Blue Cross Blue Shield, are you going to replace it with something better? I'm scared. Don't take away my Blue Cross Blue Shield. You know what I'm saying?
Listen. Nobody. You can take. I had work-based insurance as a teacher, and here's the thing about these kind of things about work-based insurance. Is that you have to, it's just like the teachers just did in Chicago. They have to, every 3 or 4 years, you got to sit down with your bosses and negotiate another healthcare policy. And I as a teacher and a union president, I had to bargain healthcare at least 12 times in my term. And the thing about bargaining benefits is that the boss, it's always easier to take away benefits than it is to take away your pay, your salary. And so every 3 or 4 years, I had to sit down with the Board of Education and bargain my health care again, not just my health care, but the health care of all our members, and whether they would pay 5% of it or 10% of it. But if we had a healthcare system like they have in every industrialized country in Europe and in Canada, in Australia, where they have national health care, working people never have to bargain that health care again. It's the law. And so whether it's health care or sick days or vacation pays in every other industrialized nation, capitalist countries, right? We're not even talking about socialism or anything like that. We're talking about capitalist countries where the working people of those countries have guaranteed health care from birth to death.
But they have something. I'm sorry, cutting you off.
And here we are in the richest country in the world, and we can't afford to do that.
I know you're already sold me. We only got like 3 or 4 minutes left. The point is that you're a union man. I have a cutoff time. I can go 15.
You cut me off. That's fine.
No. It's just like Mr. Klonsky. There are unions who fought for their good health care. So even some unions in this country are afraid of universal health care.
Yeah, and they're wrong. I argue that the president, for example, of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten, that's her view. She says, don't take away teacher health care. But I cannot, for the life of me, see why in the richest country in the world, government health care for everybody can't be of the same quality as any work-based insurance. We can afford it, and you don't have to tax the rich to pay for it. You tax the Jeff Bezoses of the world, and they can pay. They make enough money in a month to pay for a national health care plan for everybody in this country. And so anyway, I don't know.
No, I agree with you, but it's people are scared. People would rather have the devil known, which is Blue Cross and Humana, than the devil unknown. You said the government health care. Ooh, that sounds scary.
Well, they don't mind when it's government Medicare, do they? People love their Medicare.
Of course they,
yeah. So anyway, I think
that is an argument. You're right. That is discussion we need to have, because when I saw Amy Klobuchar discussing that with Elizabeth Warren on one of the debates, I was like, man, we need to just go in the room and just really have a knocked out, drag out.
Well, yeah. Except and I'm okay with Elizabeth Warren, but what she and Klobuchar and Buttigieg and all the rest of them, what they don't want to touch is going after the billionaires to have them pay for it. And Warren a little bit, although even she says she likes having billionaires, so I don't get that. But but certainly we can have a social welfare system, a system of social justice that takes care of really of all working people, poor people in this country, and there's plenty of wealth around to pay for it if we go get it. And my daughter I once told my when she was little, I told her, there's 400 people in this country that have as much wealth as everybody else. And she went and my daughter, she looked at me and she said, 400 people. She said, we can take them. And I said, that you're exactly right.
Okay, right. I'm not ready. I agree with you. I'm not ready for the revolution, and it's not going to be televised. But I have to bring you back, and we can bring out our hammer and sickles and have a great discussion. Fred Klonsky,
I love talking to you, Mark.
Tongue in cheek. It's been a pleasure, and I will hear from. I'll have you back next year. Can I have you back next year? 2020.
Oh, that's a month.
Of course, January, February. Come on.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
I'll still be here.
All right.